Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and this is my review of Ghost in the Shell. Generally, I'm into some pretty nerdy things, but I'm not really into anime outside of Pokemon, and I don't read mangas. So when it comes to this whole realm, I am pretty clueless. I also watch like Dragon Ball Z. I know of Sailor Moon, but other than that, I'm pretty much in the dark when it comes to these type of anime manga properties. Thus, I knew virtually nothing about Ghost in the Shell when I heard that this film was being made, and then story and character-wise, still really didn't know anything headed into the film tonight. And having not been a fan of the original series, I enjoyed myself well enough. I'm not jumping up and down with enthusiasm, but I had a pretty good time. And don't worry, we're going to talk about that whitewashing at the end here. So let's go ahead and talk about the positives first. The biggest positive I could possibly give this film is that the visuals are absolutely stunning. They are gorgeous. They are breathtaking. In so many ways, this felt like it was ripped straight out of an anime and converted into live action. I mean, the visuals were just amazing. I loved all the holographics, the lights, the cityscapes. All of it was just gorgeous. And it was also beautifully shot as a film in general. So all of the effects, all the cinematography, everything about the look of Ghost in the Shell was just top-notch superb. And I also have to give this film a thumbs up on pacing. Once this movie gets into the story, which is pretty quick, it never stops. It's pretty much unrelenting. It gets you hooked into the main storyline of who is this, what's going on, who are the real bad guys, and it keeps you invested in that storyline throughout, while making sure that the action scenes come reasonably soon, one right after the other. As for the acting, I think the actors that are here all did fine. I think that Scarlett Johansson did do a very good job in her role. I think she plays the action lead very, very well. And she brought a lot to this character, I will say that. So it was made majorly from Scarlett Johansson. As did Juliette Binoche. She has a little bit of a smaller role, but again, I thought she was really, really good and brought some humanity in there. I also liked Michael Pitt as our villain, so really, most of our main players here did a really good job. And I do think that the story was captivating. As I said, they set up this premise of like this kind of really crazy concept that does lead down different kind of pathways of what it means to be a human, what it means to be who you are, and what defines you. What makes you you? What defines you as being you? And I think that those ideas could be explored even further, but it was a very nice introduction to those explorations, and it was great to kind of have these deeper layers underneath the surface of kind of a sci-fi action movie. Now moving on to the negatives. The first negative is that it never felt quite magical. So while I'm not a big fan of anime, I feel like anime always has this sort of magical, whimsical feeling to it. And I know this might be a darker anime and manga, but this movie never swept us up. I think part of that is that a lot of our action takes place in very, very dark places. So it takes place in alleyways, it takes place in like basement hallways. It's always in really dark, like dreary places, industrial locations. And it is a little bit of a shame to have all these beautiful landscapes and holograms, and then you never really utilize them in the biggest moments. They're just kind of there for the big scanning shots or the big tracking shots, but they're never there for the big action set pieces. And that leads to some of the action being almost incoherent. It's just so much going on that you're like, oh, I can't really see because it's so dark and there's a lot of moving and okay, who just punched who? And that's always unfortunate in a movie where the action is key to making sure that we're keeping up at a quick pace. Also, it would have been nice to get some backstory for some of these other folks that are in the film. Some of these background characters or side characters. We don't really get any sort of background outside of Major herself. And the big negative is the whitewashing, and it is very apparent as you're watching the film. So as I watched the film, I realized I might be able to forgive the movie if they had whitewashed Major and kind of kept the rest feeling more authentic. Unfortunately, the movie definitely does not do that, and then it makes the whitewashing across the board just that much more obvious. So really, in the scheme of the film, Scarlett Johansson's whitewashing isn't the biggest problem I had here, because my rule is if you're going to change a character's nationality, or if you're going to change their race and they are a fictional character, then I need to see a solid performance from that lead actor. I need to believe that they were the best actor that auditioned for this role. And Scarlett Johansson did bring a lot to the role. So that's kind of why the Major role might be forgiven. However, the fact that there are only 2 Asian characters in the entire main cast, and one of them is almost never seen. The other is an older gentleman who does have some badass moments, but is definitely kind of the wise old man trope. And then we also have kind of an Asian mother here. So we have 3 total Asian characters. None of the scientists, none of the doctors, none of the heads up in any of the businesses. It was like, oh wow, I mean, do no Asians actually work in Japan? I don't understand. And the fact is, these are Asian actors we've seen before. They're all a little bit older. And it would have been nice for them to really flesh out all of the supporting cast with up-and-coming, fresh Asian actors mixed in with those established faces that we recognize. And then maybe we could have catapulted some young Asian talent into the mainstream with this film. We could have showcased some young Asian talent that's not really getting showcased anywhere else. But instead, almost all of them are white on the sidelines. Or there are other nationalities as well. We have like some black cast members. But that's not the culture we're in. We're in Japan. And it felt very much like this isn't Japan. This isn't Japanese. Plus, you're adapting a Japanese property that has pretty much stayed exclusive to Japan as a culture, really embodies them. They're the ones who made this property and made it famous. So to completely appropriate and steal that without giving any type of real homage to the people involved and not just putting it in Japan is always disappointing. So spoiler alert, I'm going to talk a little bit about a spoiler right here. And for me, it kind of twisted the knife on the whitewashing controversy, so I really wanted to talk about it. I'll go ahead and put the chapter time down below where you can re-enter if you don't want to hear this spoiler. So the final whitewashing dagger is the fact that Major and Michael Pitt's characters are both Asian brains and souls. They were both young Asian runaways in their lives who got kidnapped. Their brains and consciousness and souls were put into white bodies. Are you kidding me? That just really compounded the whole whitewashing scandal. The fact that you thought it was appropriate to take an Asian person's mind and put it in a white body because you're all white doctors and scientists and probably an American or European company. Once we got to that revelation, it was all kind of done for me. The whitewashing just was a complete disaster when it came to this film with that revelation, in my personal opinion, when it just compounded on top of everything else I had already mentioned. So welcome back if you wanted to avoid that spoiler. Now, what would I give Ghost in the Shell? So just based on how egregious the whitewashing scandal is in this situation, I don't recommend anybody actually see this in movie theaters. We cannot send a message to Hollywood if we don't do it with our dollars. So my personal recommendation, just based on my consciousness and how I feel toward whitewashing in Hollywood, skip this. Based on the film itself, I think it's worth a matinee. And it is gorgeous. I think that fans of the property are not going to be happy. It seemed very condensed. So we'll see. But otherwise, it makes for a perfectly fine, beautiful action sci-fi. So, that has been my review of Ghost in the Shell. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead, click like down below, and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on our latest videos. Also, join in on the discussion. Are you excited to see Ghost in the Shell? And are you a fan of the original manga, anime, and film series? Let me know either in the comment section down below, or you can hit me up on Twitter. I love you all so much for your support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!